Hi, it's Toby from Heavyweight MMA. Today with David Martinez, a smiling assassin straight out of Australia. How are you, bro?
Oh, fantastic, man. Pleasure to be here.
Man, the game of MMA is a tough one, right? You're up and you're down all the time. I'm looking at your career. You've had your highs and your lows, and now you've got a bit of a low with an injury, right? So, how does it feel, man? The game's pretty hard.
Oh, it's rough, man. Like one minute you're on top of the world, the next like you're down in the doldrums, so to speak. And it didn't take too long. Like I think it was about 3 days after winning the title, just feeling fantastic, and I immediately get gastro. Absolutely wrecked for about up to 2 weeks. I think that was, man.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. Like looking at your career, man. Your first fight, you said you just jumped in without any training, so that one's kind of expected. That's a bit of a spin out that someone would do that. Actually, did you like bluing in the first place that you jumped in and did that, or what?
Oh man, like I just remember watching that movie, Never Back Down.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw you mention that as one of your inspiration to start up.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like, you know what? That looks like fun. I want to get in and try that. Uh, Lord knows how I managed to like find my way into a fight and pass all the checks and everything. Got in the cage and got absolutely wasted. As you
Who put you in, bro? Because you normally like any responsible coach or promoter wouldn't put someone in that hasn't trained, really.
oh man, I was able to like sneak around and bypass all those checks. I didn't need a coach, so I went down basically without a corner.
That's crazy, man. And you mentioned that after that, it kind of like woke you up to the fact that you need a ground game, right? You can't just go in with nothing.
Yeah, well, that was perhaps the best thing that happened in that first fight was it highlighted the need for grappling, in which once I started training, that became my biggest strength and the key to like most, if not all, my wins.
Man, and looking at the amateur side of things, like you had how many fights did you have? You had looks like 11 fights. 11 fights, 9 wins after that, bro. And you think about like I look at quite a few of the guys interview records I interview, and yours is pretty extensive amateur career and pretty successful one, right? So you got that good experience before jumping up to pro.
Yes, yeah, that was somewhere along the lines I came up with the goal like, right, I want 10 amateur fights before I turn pro, and that was what I was aiming for. And I captured the amateur title in my 10th fight, so I'm like, this is perfect. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find an opponent for a pro debut, hence why I got my 11th amateur fight, which was a title defense. But yeah, yeah, I mean, with a record like 9-1-1 as an amateur, that was off to a pretty good start.
Yeah, it's awesome. So that the titles you've held, obviously the Eternal MMA Lightweight Champ, XFC Lightweight Champ before, and Coastal Combat Champ. Were they amateur or pro?
So the XFC one was amateur. First, I was the interim champ, then the unified, and defended it once. And I won the Eternal Lightweight Champion the first time around. And then the Coastal one, which is also pro. And just finished up by winning the Eternal one a second time round.
That's it, man. Nice record. So obviously, you're clearing out the people over in Australia on your amateur and your pro career, trying to get your way out of there, right? So you can get up to the big league outside of Australia. I heard you mention that you'd be interested in taking up a fight or a career outside in the big organisations, right?
Yes, yeah. Well, any of the big organisations I find very interesting, Bellator, PFL, or One Championship, but UFC is obviously still the highest one, the one we're all aiming for. But any of those would be like awesome to fly over and fight in.
Yeah, exactly. Because at the end of the day, it's about experience. And obviously, if you're just chasing cash or fame, you might just try and get to UFC. But if you're looking for the experience, no matter where you go, which of those organizations you go to, you're going to be experiencing something interesting, getting out of your country, experiencing new cultures, training in new gyms, and, getting out of there. It's any of them would be good, right?
Yes, yeah. I mean, like people always like to travel the world, but imagine getting to travel the world and fight at the same time.
Yeah.
That would be pretty awesome.
Exactly. That's what speaking to Dan Hooker a while back, he was saying exactly that. It's one of the big benefits of fighting that, whether he was getting paid a lot or not, he loves the thing about, moving around different countries to fight and getting paid for it and meeting people along the way.
Yeah, I would say that it's one of the big attractions of fighting, particularly in the bigger organizations. Just again, to travel around, and like you can hang around, have extended holidays after your fights too, provided you don't get too badly beaten up.
That's it. Actually, most of the people I talk to are pretty quick to get back, usually families calling or whatever. I think it's something they'll regret later in their life, right? Like, why didn't I just stick around for a couple of weeks? Because it's downtime after your fight anyway. It's time that you can kind of appreciate things more than when you first get there.
Yeah, well, I can understand from the family, maybe friends standpoint, because you kind of almost isolate yourself going through training camps. And, you can't go out and hang out with your friends whenever you want, because then there's the temptations for food, staying out late, and all that stuff, and it just doesn't help with your training. So you kind of separate yourself a bit during the camp. So even though you might have seen them like occasionally, by the time you've had your fight, it's usually been 2 or 3 months since you've hung out with anyone like regularly.
That's it, man. Yeah, that's a point, right? Speaking of Dan Hooker, he's pretty family oriented from the look of it. And looking at him and the other guys in UFC Lightweight, man, like obviously you're eyeing these guys, you watch them and you're thinking to yourself, I can take some of these guys. Like, what about the top 5, bro? Who you reckon to be someone you'd like to fight in the top 5 UFC?
Of UFC, man, like honestly, Justin Gaethje. Yeah. Just for the experience of fighting that guy, he just looks like he'd be a ton of fun to be in the cage with, man. Yeah. Out of all the fights, I would say Justin Gaethje.
True, man. And my favorite fighter, a little bit biased of our region, is Dan Hooker from the lightweights, bro. Dan Hooker, also like Jalen Turner's talked to me a few times, so I'm a big fan of Jalen. And also I like Fiziev as a fighter, man. How do you reckon you match up with those guys?
Oh, well, trying to... First of all, with Hooker, man, like, how does that guy make featherweight?
Yeah, he's a big dude.
I just see this guy, I'm like, and you're big compared to me for lightweight. Like, how are you making 145? Yeah, but well, the 3 guys you mentioned, just really, really good strikers, man. And so, yeah.
When you talk about the top 5, they're pretty like wrestling based or grappling based, right? But then you go, or other than maybe Poirier, you look at Hooker, Fiziev, and Jalen Turner. So that would maybe give you more of a chance, right? Because you've got that grappling experience and that's your sort of go-to, right?
Yes, yeah. Well, but when you look at those guys, man, like even the ones who wouldn't consider to be like strong grapplers, really they are. Poirier can hold his own in grappling. He's a black belt. Dan Hooker, first got his start as being the hangman, because he's good at freaking guillotines and wrecking you with the front headlock chokes and all that. I'm not too sure about Turner's grappling experience, but yeah. Well, then you get up to the higher ups. Chandler, Gaethje were wrestlers before they started falling in love with punching people in the face, and then of course, the very top guys, Oliveira, Islam, are just phenomenal grapplers.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe not everyone really understands that anyone pretty much in UFC can have a good grappling attempt too, right? Like everyone in there, even the guys that are primarily strikers that are training grappling, even your Alex Pereira, for sure he's training grappling every day, to try and catch up the deficit. So it's not as if anyone there is purely a striker.
Oh man! Speaking of Pereira, that 3rd round with him grappling is just like it's like watching the kids with their little floaties out in the pool. But this is the middleweight title fight, and both of them don't look like they've been grappling very long.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of people in the division salivating when they see him get the title after his grappling attempts. But he is training it, right? Like you can see he's training. He's just not at that elite level yet.
I guarantee Chimaev's looking at it like, oh yeah, this is my time, baby. Yeah, but I gotta say, watching them grapple is a lot funner than like watching pure grapplers trying to strike with each other. Yeah, you remember this? I remember the timeline of freaking K1 Damian Maia.
Yeah, crazy, right? Hey man, I'm just thinking of these fighters and thinking of Aiden Aguilera. Just pops into my mind. Your last win, man. I was watching the interview with you and him together, and he's being so cocky and such a smart ass. I'm sure some of it is to build a fight, but it seemed pretty genuine, man. Like, and you were just like holding yourself, like being respectful and everything. And it's kind of poetic justice that you beat him like you did, right?
Yeah. Look, it ended up being the perfect storyline if you wanted the good guy to win. But yeah, Aiden just came out and he played, to me, the perfect villain. Got everyone hyped and excited for the fight, and yeah, I got to go in and take the win, and and it was that much more because of the storyline.
Yeah.
But I can't say to how much of his trash talk was genuine, how much was just made up. Uh, I mean, I tried to sort of play along with it, but I couldn't because I couldn't bring myself to hate the guy at all, even though we were going to be in the cage fighting each other. Just
Yeah. There's so many different approaches to fighting, right? Like some people like build up the hatred inside them and hate their opponent. Some people even hate their opponent for life just for the fact that you're in there fighting each other. But generally, you find most people like focus more on the technical side of it, right? And don't need to hate someone unless there's a real reason.
Yeah, well, I once heard a fighter describe it as like a mathematical problem that he was trying to solve, and I kind of like that analogy. I've always been like really competitive, as much as I try to pretend I'm not. But no, hatred is the furthest thing from my mind when I think about fighting and competing. I do not like the idea of hating in someone who's only guilty of having the same dream as me, basically.
Yeah. There's this a different approach. Like you mentioned in an interview that you fight because there's a chance for honest self-expression and it's a challenge for you, right? But other people are fighting, just to get some cash and hate the person that's trying to take it away from them.
Well, I don't mind fighting for cash either, man.
Yeah.
It's because it helps me continue to train and continue in the sport type thing. But no, like, as soon as anything other than the love of the sport starts to take over, things start to go bad. You're no longer being honest or genuine with your pursuit of it, and that comes back to bite you eventually.
Yeah, that's true, man. And when you talk about cash, it's good to have some cash. It's not a good career to really have in the Australian sort of scene, right? Like it's hard to get cash, right? You need to get the right sponsors. The fights is pretty low, right?
Oh, bro, like if your pursuit is money, why are you fighting? Like there is so many better ways. I recently took up a night field job at Woolworths, and it's like within a couple of weeks, I'm like, man, I make more money from this than I ever did from fighting. So and like I'm only working part time. So yeah, if you're thinking about more financial thing, like don't bother fighting. Train as a hobby and find a proper job of finances is like your main goal there.
So then what are the rewards, bro? What are the rewards for fighters like you other than money?
Again, it really is that honest self-expression. It's just a feeling of like this is what I was meant to do, and that's what drives me to keep him trying, even with the ups and downs, man.
Yeah, tough one, man. Hey, I was just thinking about one of your fights that I kind of like. I like the way Dimps fights, man. He's like a brawler, and he's like, he's a real fighter. And I kind of enjoyed the fight with him that you had. But I was just thinking, I remember it as quite a lot of stand up. And I was thinking at the time, like, why you're not imposing your will in the takedown sort of area, like you did towards the end. But you seemed pretty content for a while to stand and trade. Why was that?
Oh well, I just I think that was my first fight since working with Ryan Doyle, my striking coach, and I probably got a bit carried away with thinking like, oh, I can strike now, and so I'm throwing hands, throwing kicks, and I'm enjoying myself too much. And then by the in between the second and third round, Dunstan's running. He's like, "Hey, Dave, like you're the wrestler, right?" And, oh, that's right, yeah. Yeah, so I go out and I'm like, right, I'm going to get double leg this time. go out and shoot. Friggin' sprawls on me, but I was able to turn the corner and take his back. But I knew from the first round that like he wasn't going to let me get the neck. He was just easily slipping out, and I was like, oh well. Kind of in this, we ended up in this stalemate where it's like I've got the best position in terms of grappling possible, but I can't do anything with it, and he can't escape it. And so yeah, we end up in this awkward sort of like trying to punch each other while I've got his back.
Yeah. I remember he was doing the round the back shots to you. Yeah, no, it's funny because I remember the third and I was thinking your coach must have been screaming at you. It wasn't quite a scream. I would be going, what the fuck are you doing? Go and take him down. What are you doing? You know, because obviously that's Dim's strengths, right? Is the stand-up fighting. He's a boxer, he's a kickboxer, a Thai boxer, and also an MMA fighter.
Yeah. So yeah, Dunstan's just there like, what are you doing, Dave? You want to give this man a shot, or do you want to use your strength? Yeah, train all this grappling and then you don't use it. What the heck are you doing? But Doyle's just giving me the big thumbs up because I'm.
There you go. You did the right thing. That's it, man. Out of the fights that you've had, like the pro fights, which sort of ones kind of stick out to you in your mind? Is it the losses or is it the wins? Like what sort of fights kind of stick out in your mind as your best fights or your most memorable fights for some reason or other?
Oh well, every one of my fights has some sort of memorable thing about it to me. But if I had to pick just one, it would definitely be against Mikey.
Yeah,
that was just, I don't know, that was an incredible fight. Like it was meant to be my teammate Ben Ball who was fighting him, but he got injured, and so I was sent in as the replacement. And just the whole thing, and, knowing Mikey was a UFC vet, and he's been there, he's done that. To share the cage with him was incredible. And just 3 rounds of trying not to take too much of a shellacking from him.
Yeah, man. Like you talk about the ups and downs of the ride of being an MMA fighter. Like you said, nine straight in amateur, jump over 6 straight in pro. You're feeling unbeatable, and then you have a shitty run of like 5 fights with a Dimps win in the middle. Like, how was that feeling for you at the time, man? Like, there was a couple of fights that you wouldn't feel good about, like that Tristan Murphy one. That was like a quick one, right? And pretty brutal fight. Like, what does that feel for you as a pro, and how do you feel about fighting at that point?
Oh man, like when you go on, a 15 fight win streak, and then suddenly you lose, you're just that used to winning that you're like, I don't know what happened, and I sort of ended up a bit lost after that. And so with each fight, I just felt like less and less of myself, because I was just basically going around unsure of what is it that I'm doing wrong? Why is this suddenly happening? And then COVID happened during this period as well. So there's these longer stretches between fights, and the entire time I'm just spending all this time feeling just lost and uncertain of myself. So it wasn't a fun experience. I was always trying new things, and nothing seemed to be working. But somehow I managed to stumble on some of the things. I met some people. I met Ryan Doyle. I met Jim Orangi, and they started to help me in it, both in and outside of fighting. And I went back to enjoying it, and here we are, Eternal Champ again.
Yeah, it's beautiful, man. It's a good turnaround and, nice success story, bro. And that sky's the limit now. Look, you just mentioned about COVID. Like, I saw you had 6 fights in 2019, and then straight away, that was the time COVID started after that. And then you drifted back to 1, 2 per year. Let's hope that you can, start to pick things up again. Is that what you aim to do? Like, pick up a few more fights in 2023?
Yeah, man. I don't know. I'm the kind of guy who wants to fight as often as I can. But after these last few fights, I realized that's I need to be a bit more smarter about how I go about it, because after the Dimps fight, I immediately wanted to jump in on the next card, which ended up being the Tristan Murphy fight. Just the lead up to that fight was just all wrong, and the wheels fell off basically, despite the deaths of the Dimps fight and the camp for that fight, and then it happened again this year. You know, I won the title. I'm like, right, I want to jump back and immediately defend it. And what happened? Again, the wheels fell off. Just constantly getting sick, getting myself injured, and I'm like, you know, yeah. I don't think I take into consideration, the wear and tear of the previous fight camp. Yeah. And so I immediately start off trying to hit the ground running for the next one. And yeah, it just, my body falls apart on me. Yeah. So as much as I want to fight as often as possible, I do feel I need to start taking some time after fights, make sure my body's in the proper position to go through another fight camp and then execute.
Yeah, it's another example of the game, man. Like it's mentally you can be ready to go, but is your body ready? And as you've seen over the years, the evolution of MMA is concentrating a lot on things like rest and recovery, and getting through injuries and training the right way. So it makes sense that you might need to slow it down from that 2019 sort of number. Every 2 months might be a bit harsh, but yeah, 3 times a year is what most guys seem to kind of stick on. Like they feel like every 4 months would be kind of a good number, 2 to 3 fights a year.
Yeah, I do agree with that. 2, 3 sounds perfect in terms of like giving enough time for the body to rebuild, particularly like when you involve weight cutting. I feel like people who fight regularly, we're talking up to 5, 6 times a year. These are the people who shouldn't have to cut too much weight and have a style that doesn't take a whole lot of damage type thing, which when I'm able to impose my grappling game from the start, I usually don't take a lot of damage then. If I'm not successful at that, well, it's a rough night for my face, I'll tell you that.
I can't remember, speaking of styles, man, I can't remember exactly what fight it was. It might have been the last fight. But I noticed you're moving a little bit differently, like a little bit more feinting on the outside. Like it reminded me a little bit of the CKB guys. Have you taken any influence from them at all?
Oh, bro, I've been down training with Volkanovski actually. So
okay, well that's where it comes from, man. He does the same, right?
Yeah, I think I've been snatching a few things from him and Joe Lopez.
Yep. Why not, man? Take what you can, what works for your game, right? That's the benefit of cross training.
Yes, yeah, man. Like I can't tell you what it's like getting to train with those guys down there as well. You're talking about world champion and pound for pound best fighter in the UFC here currently, and when you meet him, man, like he's so freaking down to earth. Like he's legit one of the most awesome people you can meet.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, that's what everyone seems to say, right? And that's a good thing. It's kind of an Aussie trait that we kind of like, right, about him and about a lot of our athletes, that they kind of maintain that down-to-earth thing, don't get too carried away by fame and money, etc.
Yeah, well, they say never meet your heroes, but Volkanovski very much is the opposite of that. Like, if you get the chance to meet him, like, yeah, you'll like him all the more.
I chatted with Joe one day online, and Volk was behind him. They were in quarantine, and Volk was doing a bit of like posing in the background. I got to meet him quickly, but I'd already turned the damn camera off. But anyway, yeah, I want to go down there. I'm coming back to Oz in December. I want to go down there just to do a session with Colby. I'm sure you know Colby. Just learn something from the boy.
Yeah, man. Oh, well, that's what I mean. Like, I go down for the training, but I definitely stay for the banter between Joe and Alex.
That's it. A lot of banter, right? That's what I hear. What about Ignite, bro? Ignite Jim and Dunstan Death Squad, bro. How's the banter around there? You guys get up to it as well?
Oh yeah, man. Friggin' yeah, I love those guys. Except for when they're either ragging on me after scoring a takedown, or if Dunstan comes over and says, "Oh yeah, Dave, I think you lost that round there." Like the man's clearly like gone blind or something. But no. Like the great thing about Ignite, man, and is the training is always intense. You always have people like visiting from different gyms to train there, and so yeah, you get a good assortment of bodies. And everyone's there for each other, whether it's in the training room, at the fight shows. It is a fantastic team to be a part of.
I've talked to a couple of Ignite guys lately. One of them was Victor. Do you train with Victor much?
I haven't got a chance to train with him much, but yeah, earlier on, we were doing a lot of regular sparring together, and man, he's taken off, like particularly with his hands.
Yeah. Brutal first pro fight recently. They gave it to each other. Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely worthy of that name, the Impaler.
That's it, man. So, talking about your gym, man, do you guys like I mentioned, the MMA's come a long way. What sort of things do you guys do apart from just your normal sort of training? Do you get into, diet and essence, strength and conditioning, and what do you guys do for these areas? Rest and recovery, all that.
Yeah, so I think each of us seems to manage the outside things sort of in our own way. So we all sort of train at different places as for the recovery, or little bits and pieces of our skill game and strength and conditioning. Like we're all at different spots. It's kind of like we all sort of come together at Ignite is the main. That's sort of like the hub.
What do you do for like diet as an example? What do you do for that? Do you have a dietitian? Do you just work on it yourself? How do you do it?
At the moment, I've got Scott Hitwell from Muscle Hut and my wife basically serving as my nutritionist. So
yep.
Usually my diet consists of me trying to eat whatever I want and then getting told off.
Fair enough, man. I seem to see the fight dietitian pop up with nearly every person I talk to. So they seem to be covering nearly every fighter in Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah, I'd love to be a part of those guys, but I need the cash, bro.
Yeah, not cheap. I got a diet plan recently from It looks good, but mine's just for your normal sort of person who trains a bit, not for your sort of level.
Yeah.
That's it. Man, so just want to ask you a couple of questions to finish up, just a couple of sort of general questions that people might be interested in, like being someone that's trained, like you guys train so much, I think you got some good knowledge to share usually about training and motivation, etc. So for your general person, what tips would you give for, making yourself get up and train and do some work, like not everyone's motivated to do it,
Yeah, well, the first part is you got to find something that you enjoy doing. Yeah, because if you don't enjoy doing it, it's going to be hard to stick to, regardless of whatever other motivation you might be relying on whether to lose weight, that. So you got to find the good thing about MMA. I found is that as your interests sort of change, there's always something. Sometimes I might be interested in it more in the grappling, the wrestling side of things. Other times I might feel more motivated for the striking. But there's just always an element of the sport that I can, dive into. But yeah, that would be my main tip: is just finding something that really interests you, really catches your attention, because otherwise it's going to be a struggle to keep going.
Just a question, man, do you wake up on days and just go, man, I don't want to do this? It's something I usually ask people because, I train a lot, but I get that every single day, to be honest.
But bro, you can go. I find I can go entire weeks feeling that way sometimes. Usually it's based around like conditioning sessions.
Yeah.
So they're the ones that kind of like, because I got one with Doyle called the Hell Rounds. I wake up and I'm like, oh, here we go.
Yeah, it's hard to get out of bed, right? Man, another question, just like for general sort of health, like what would you recommend people do, just for general wellness, whether it's exercise, eating right, sleeping right, what sort of things would you recommend?
Two things I would say, man. Like, first of all, a good sleep pattern does wonders for you, man. Like it doesn't have to be necessarily like, waking up early or going to bed early, but it just needs to be consistent. And so as long as you get into a consistent sleep pattern, like I'd say that does wonders for your body and your mind. And the other thing is to adopt just some basic breathing meditation type thing, whether that's just as simple as just box breathing or something like just a regular, 3 to 5 minutes a day of doing that. And I think you'll find that affects how you approach and think of other things as well once you get into a regular habit of that.
True, man. There's a few guys really utilizing that now in the big game, man. Like Sean O'Malley's coach actually does a lot of that stuff with him, and I talked to him one day. And also, then you got a guy called Dave Wood that works with all the CKB guys. He's really they all concentrate a lot on breathing, and you see someone like Brad Riddell. They said he's really embraced it, and when he's had a tough run lately, but when he has had the chance to fight, 3 rounds, you watch the way he maintains his composure and his energy levels and his output. Like I think it's really working for him, right? Like he really can maintain. It's based on his breathing, like keeping a rhythm with breathing and that, and he really does well. So yeah, there's some evidence there that it's really useful,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, think about like Brad Riddell. Like I feel like as the fight goes on, he tends to get better. But it's just that he's getting a bit caught near the start is the problem. He doesn't get that chance to continue on. That's been the main problem with his run lately.
True. You look at him and Dan Hook. I mean, both of them kind of been caught a few times, right? And it's unfortunate because both of them are so great when the fight drags out, they can show their heart and everything, and just both of them being caught for one reason or another. Yeah. That's it, man. One more question. What's the value of learning martial arts, man, to you?
Yeah, I think obviously for me, the value of it comes to the side that like not only does it stimulate the mind and that, but it's also very good for the body in terms of strengthening and keeping it fit in a cardiovascular sense. And that's probably its greatest strength. I think as long as you're interested in learning, something like anything can serve as a good pursuit. But martial arts covers both the mental and the physical side. So if you're interested in that area, you generally end up with a all-round good health as a result.
Yeah, and then you get the benefits of being able to defend yourself in some way or other, right, as well. So it's kind of I think it's a good thing.
Oh yeah, the self-defense is definitely the self-defense and sort of the confidence from knowing you can handle yourself if a situation should arise is also beneficial.
Yeah, man. As a father, it's something I'm kind of pushing a little bit on my kids because I feel like that's one skill I want them to have. When they leave home at 18 or something, they can do whatever they want. But until then, I kind of want them to get some sort of, martial arts ability so that they can, like you said, be confident, kind of, if they get into a situation, they can handle themselves, they can defend themselves, they can defend their family, whatever they need to do,
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I think that would be like, a strong desire of any parent, and that would be capable of looking after themselves should the worst kind of situations arise.
Yeah, I've got sons, but the same for a daughter if I had one. I saw a video of a mate's daughter doing BJJ yesterday on Facebook, and she's killing it, man. It's like awesome. Like that's what you want your kids to be doing. She's like in her teenage years and just doing great. It's like what you want them to do. Yeah. Cool, man. Well, thanks so much for your time. It was good to have a chat, and I'll look forward to when you get over your injury and you get back in there for the title. You'll be fighting Blake Donnelly again, I hear. Trying to reschedule, is it?
Yes, yeah, it looks like it's going to be about mid-March for that fight, man. And so glad he stuck around. I heard he might have been trying to take another fight, but no, he's going to stick with it, and we're going to have our showdown eventually.
Cool, man. Any early prediction for that one, man? Has he been taking all you've been working for or anything like that? You're going to take him out or?
Yeah, that mother effer. We fought before, gave me a little cut above my eye, so keen to give it back to him.
That's it, man. Cool. All right, man. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it. And I'll catch you sometime in the future.
It was a pleasure being on here, brother.
Thanks, man. Cheers. Hey,